Hello and welcome to this episode of Adult Take-Home Workshops brought to you by Bettendorf Public Library. This week's topic is faux stained glass. You'll see that I have the items that will come in your kit, all that you'll need to make this project. I have the picture frame, which you do have to slip out of, the glass, which you do have to slip out of the frame, but the frame will come in handy later for display. You'll see my finished project right here. Here are the paints that you will use, and here is your template that you'll be using. The other thing that you might want to have on hand to be helpful would be a couple of cotton swabs or toothpicks if you have those at home. And I have a paper plate for mixing colors, and I have some water to wash my brush, and also I have the paintbrush that will come in your kit as well. The other thing that I've done is to cover my workspace with paper towels. This does use actual paint. It's all acrylic, so you know it should wash out of things, but just to be safe, I did cover my workspace. One thing that I forgot to tell you about is we are including glue in our kits. The glue just gives the acrylic paint a different texture. I have experimented with the faux stained glass using both just plain acrylic craft paint or using the craft paint mixed with a little bit of glue. It's really a personal preference. I would encourage you to maybe just experiment a little bit and see what you like. Right, step one is to dip my paint brush into my black paint or my black paint mixed with glue. I have put my template under my glass panel so that we can size that up properly, and we can just trace our lines here. Now the brush that's provided to you has a very fine point, and the reason that we did that was to make specifically these black lines easier to do. These black lines give the impression or image of the leaded part of actual stained glass in your faux stained glass. And truly, one thing that you may need to do, I did with my example, I actually had about 2 coats of the black, which I let dry in between. So that is something that you'll probably want to do as well. So basically what I'm going to do right now is I'm just tracing these black lines that represent my leaded glass. And this is why I said have either a cotton swab or a toothpick handy, because sometimes you just get a little bit out of the line and you don't want to have to redo your entire project. So I just wiped it off with my cotton swab there. Try to have a steady hand as you do this. It's a little difficult for me while I'm filming to have a steady hand. Again, that's why we included this fine brush point to help you to stay on the lines. Okay, we're going to take a short break while I finish the lines. So in our next step, you will see my lines all drawn, and then we'll move on to the next part. All right, we're back. I have just finished the second coat on this, letting it dry about 5 minutes in between the coats of black paint. I'm going to gently lift this up so that you can see it without the pattern under it. This will allow you to see if there's any little spots that you need to go back over. For example, I think I need to go over that a little bit more and touch up. There's a little bit of glass showing through there. So I'm going to take my paintbrush, put this back down, go over that. A little bit over there too. Okay. Then I'm going to let this dry for a little bit. I'm going to fully wash out. Oh, I just saw another spot. I'm going to fully wash out my black paint out of my brush. And then we're going to let this dry for another 5 or 10 minutes because we don't want any black paint bleeding into our other colors of our faux stained glass painting. And we are back. After I let that dry, I'm going to start to mix up my paint. I kind of like pastel colors, but it is entirely up to you. I just want to show you what to do if you want to make a pastel color or a lighter color out of any of these colors. On my example, I ended up doing a light pink, a light blue, a light purple, and then green for my my plant stems there. Whatever colors you want are entirely up to you, but I'm going to show you how to do a little mixing. First, you want to start with some white paint. It's a little bit hard to see, but it is right here. Then, let's say I want to do a very light blue. I'm just going to tap my brush in, and I'm going to bring a little bit of blue into that white. Because it's the darker hue, it's dominant. So I want to have more white paint than blue paint. Okay, so I have that amount mixed up. I think I'm going to use that for my small flower in the center. Right here. So I've got my blue paint on my brush here, and I'm going to very, very carefully between those black lines, I'm going to start to paint. I want to make sure I have my brush loaded up with paint at the tip so I can get into those tiny spaces, such as are on the sides of this flower. Okay, now this is something that is going to need more than one coat as well. You are just going to do it to your heart's content till it feels right for you. One of the other things I wanted to show you though is if I mix a little of this glue into my paint, I don't know that you'll be able to see the texture change in there. I just added a little squeeze of glue in there, but you'll be able to feel it on your brush. So again, it's whatever you feel is best, whatever you feel covers the best, but I will show you an example of that. So now I've got the glue mixed into my paint, and I'm just going to very carefully fill out my tulip here. Oh, and that's why I keep a Q-tip on hand, because it looks like I got into the black a little bit. One way to get close to those lines is to just push up with the tip of your brush. Push up at the tip. Then when you're in a bigger space, you can let that brush go flat. And then when you're going around the lines, hold your hand steady and just push up with the tip. Again, make sure I have plenty of paint. Oh, that's a little too much on the, more on the shaft of the brush. I want more on the tip. So I'm going to make sure my tip has paint on it. Gently go back over this. And it is up to you how opaque you want this. You can see from my early example here, this part of the flower, or these parts of the flower, they are pretty opaque. I did several coats on these. This here, I'm going to put my hand on it so you can see it a little better. I did this almost more of a wash, so I had some water in my paint, and then to get some texture on there, I took a little bit of a paper towel and I just kind of dabbed. That was my experiment. I'll show you how to do that in the end of this video, and it's totally up to you whether you would like to do that or not. Okay, next I'm going to take full-on blue, just blue straight from my little paint pots here, and I'm going to do this part in the darker blue color. So I don't have anything mixed with this, just the acrylic paint. And I will show you, You can experiment again with the glue. I'm going to put just a little bit of that dark blue on my paper plate here. I'm going to add a drop of glue to see which texture I prefer. When you add the glue, it does make the paint a little bit thicker. Sometimes that could be seen as easier to paint with. Sometimes I feel that way. Really, it's up to you. We just wanted to give you that option because it changes the texture of the paint a little bit. Okay, so now I've got that part completed. Something else I want to show you, you can also make paints darker. So right now I have some of the regular blue here in my palette with a little glue mixed in. I'm going to take just a little bit of black paint on my brush and I'm going to mix that in. And remember, it doesn't take a whole lot of the darker color to make it darker, but now look how I've got kind of a really beautiful dark blue. So I'm going to use that for part of my flower over here. And over here at the corners, make sure I have enough paint on my brush. You know what, I might make that actually a little darker. I'm going to make sure I clean my brush before adding more black paint to my blue over here, because I feel those colors are just a little bit too similar to the other blue. So we'll darken that up a little bit. It's one thing I love about painting is it's very forgiving. If you decide you don't like something, you can just paint right over it. And I'm okay with getting variations in color a little bit here, but you can, of course, I'm just kind of painting right over that so I can blend it in. Okay. Now you'll notice that this is still a little bit translucent. And I'm probably going to go over that another time. For this moment, I'm going to move on to the other side of the flower. And you can start in the center with your big strokes. Push out very gently to meet the line here. That's why I have a Q-tip, because I just went over the black line. There we go. And if I wasn't able to wipe that off, I certainly can go back over that with black in the end. Oh, I did it over here too. All right, I'm going to do another coat and then we'll check in and see what that looks like. All right, so I finished my second coat of the dark blue color. I'm just washing out my brush, and now I'm going to move on to the green of the stem. With this, I'm going to just paint in the basic green that's in your paint pots. You can lighten or darken it depending on your taste. I'm just painting with small strokes here, trying to keep a steady hand. Okay, now I'm going to go into the stem of the flower. Same thing here, trying to keep a steady hand. Guess I couldn't decide if I wanted to start from the top or the bottom. And then I've got paint on the other side of my brush, so I'm going to use that before I dip into any more paint. Okay, I am going to go ahead and give this a second coat after it dries for a little bit. This now has 2 coats of the green. I'm going to just lift it up slightly so you can see if it's opaque enough or translucent enough for you. Again, you were the artist. I see a few spots up here in my the top of my flower that is the original blue color that I think I'll go back over there's a few spots I missed, so I'm going to take care of that. Make sure I wash my brush out. And now I'm going to dip back into the original blue color. And I'm going to go back over those. Because you want some light to get through, but you don't want big spots. All right, so now I'm going to paint the outside of my, my glass, what I would call, I guess maybe the border, or the places that border our flower. That's up to you if you want to do that or not. I'm going to go a little out of my comfort zone and use yellow. I think yellow and blue is a beautiful combination, so I'm going to use yellow on this. I thought about doing all blue, but then I thought, oh, let's be crazy and do a little yellow. And yellow is one of my favorite colors for faux stained glass because I think light just shines through it really nicely. Okay, so I'm going to do this top part. I'm going to move my glass a little bit from my hand. I'm going to do this top part just in the basic yellow that comes right from the paint pot. And then I see over here I missed a little spot, so I'm going to get that with my yellow. And if you feel that there's too many brush strokes or lines in your painting, you can always go over that. You can just work with a little bit of a lighter hand and soften that up a bit. But I don't think the brush strokes harm your finished product at all. I think it just kind of makes it look kind of natural. Now, as promised, I do want to show you the technique that I used on my my first example. If you want to learn that, it's nothing special. I just took some yellow paint. I added in a tiny bit of water, and I put it on my glass, and then just use this paper towel to make a texture. So I'm just going to do one panel like that. Again, it's totally up to you if you want to try that or not. I just like the texture of it. I like the look of it. It kind of reminds me of frosted glass. And I like that. So over here, I'm going to be careful. Just make sure I have my point of my brush covered in paint. Work with little careful strokes when I'm close to those black lines. All right, so I'm going to texturize this part. And I do have to be careful when I get into this part right here because it's so close to the lines. And then I will finish this part off. Same method. Kind of getting the paint all around. I'm going to go very gently over here. So I don't run into the black lines. And again, if you do, you can just go over them again with your black paint. Okay. I'm going to use that texturization. It just makes it unique. Okay. Now I'm going to let that dry, and I'm going to put it off to the side while I let that dry. And I'm going to show you a couple other things that are going to be included in your kit. I am including 2 other designs. In case you're not a flower person, I am a flower person. I love flowers. I love faux stained glass flowers. Not everyone does, and I certainly realize that. So here is more of a geometric shape that you could use. It'll be sized to fit the frame that, or the glass that you're given with your kit. And then I also have a heart, which You know, we do have Valentine's Day next month in case anyone would want to do something like that. So those templates will be included in your kit as well. You would basically use the same technique as I did on the flower, just in another design template. And there is our finished product. You can see the different color variations. Here's where I did the texturizing. Here's more of the just basic paint for the background area. You can see the translucentness of the darker blue color. Up here, I think I will maybe go over that the regular blue color again. It's a little bit too translucent for my liking. I'm happy with the color of the light blue flower in the middle. Again, those are all your individual choices. And happy painting. Thanks for joining us today.